Welcome, everyone. My name is Erwin Cito. This is the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. And I hear the lockdown in Ontario has been extended for 2 weeks. So golf and tennis are still considered too dangerous. Even though I've had my first AstraZeneca shot 3 weeks ago, I'd like to thank all the folks who are sharing their experiences having severe symptoms on the socials, fever, headache, hospitalization for 2 weeks. Some have shared continued issues months after recovering from the initial severe symptoms. Hence, I personally have no regrets in taking the AZ shot, as I know I'll never have to experience the same as these folks, and I couldn't handle being responsible for passing it on to someone else. In my line of work, I still meet with clients. One lives with his elderly parents, another just had a baby 6 months ago, and I'd be very upset if I were the one to ever cause them hardship. Some may disagree with me, and that's totally cool. Not everyone has to agree on everything. My kids don't even agree with me on who their favorite parent is. And I'll give another example. There are some who took the last 12 months off during the pandemic. No doubt life, online school for kids, health, work, all those things got harder. I recall even seeing on Facebook someone post that one does not need to learn a new skill or side hustle while we are locked down. In my experience, the path to success is not letting things happen to you. It's rather making things happen. As we approach the end of the pandemic, and it will end, places like Israel, several U.S. states, the UK, a mixture of places that either lock down or have high vaccination rates or both, they have limited restrictions within their borders. So we're not that much further away in Canada. But imagine this. Imagine your life's a newspaper and it's all about you. On the day the pandemic is over, you open the door to your house, the newspaper has been delivered, it's waiting for you on your front step. You open the paper up, you look at the front page. What does the headline say? Does it say you logged 10,000 hours on Netflix? Or does it say you came out of the pandemic as your best you? For all you real estate investors, you're likely the wealthiest you've ever been. No, it hasn't been easy. I'm there with you. I've never had so much vacancy within my student rentals, but otherwise our other tenants have been whole. They paid all their rent. All you stock folks, several of the markets are at all-time highs. You're more successful than ever. On the personal side, I got to spend a lot of time in quality time with my kids. Just last night after dinner, we went for a walk. We came across a beaver chewing on a branch. I got to share this moment with my kids. This is the only second time I've ever seen a beaver in the wild, so the moment was precious for me. Thanks to my Peloton bike, I'm in great shape. I've been doing virtual spin classes and strength classes. My golf game still stinks, but one day we'll be opened up and I'll be able to practice again. Personally, I hope your newspaper headline says you smashed it. Totally okay if you need a few weeks or a few months to acclimate to this new environment, but then you went on and crushed it. If you haven't been crushing it, then hopefully you'll connect with us at one of our multitude of events. We offer free trainings, free tours, networking events, and if you're a licensed realtor on the west side of the GTA, we are hiring rockstar coaches to work with our real estate investor clients investing in KWC, Hamilton, Niagara region, etc. Go to www.infinitywealth.ca and reach out. If you're already on this email newsletter, simply reach out. You're on my socials, simply reach out. We're looking to hire 2 rockstar coaches. FYI, our clients are crushing it. So if you follow the real estate market at all, you know that to be true. Now with the federal government committing over $1 billion to fund the light rail transit system in Hamilton, prices will find another level. Hopefully you'll let us help you on your journey to a successful side hustle. And if not, this podcast will still be here. So this week we have my controversial guest, friend Corrie George, who heads up. He would invest in real estate if he had the time to, but he's currently focused on his business. So unfortunately, we don't talk much about real estate at all on this show. But why Corrie is here is because the truth about real estate investing is the majority of real estate investors have great paying jobs. At least that's how they start. That's how they're able to convince the bank to lend them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But first, they have to have 6-figure incomes that help. And Corrie has helped many people develop those, including people who are young or young at heart, become successful sales professionals. That's why Corrie is here today to share his crazy-ass story, building his $8 million business by the time he was 30 years old, how he met his idol at the age of 26, completely blew it, and was laughed at in a staff meeting of 50 people. He was a heavy drug dealer when he was a user as a teenager. He slept in a warehouse for 8 months. He's almost died of organ failure at least twice as long, and he went to Colombia for stem cells. He's lost over $1 million in the last year now, but he's bouncing back. And most importantly, how his company competes with post-secondary schools and recruiting young people, and he's teaching them sales training so they can actually make money. So my apologies in advance if you're offended by anything Corrie says. If you offend easily, please don't listen. Corrie and I don't agree on everything, but we don't have to, because at the end of the day, it's the results that matter. And I like to say we both help people. So please enjoy the show. Hi, Corrie.
How's it going?
Excellent. What's keeping you busy these days?
Good to see you again, Erwin. Yeah, lots is keeping me busy. Obviously, 2 companies, one that's been hamstringed or shut down. So the focusing of shifting that energy and investment into the US. Grant Cardone Canada, which I own, which is thriving and prospering. We just came off of 2 of our strongest months. We finished 2020 with our strongest ever quarter for profit and revenue, which was great. And then we obviously have run into some bureaucratic and rather restricting challenges from the Canadian government, not for Grant Cardone, but for YESA, my second company.
Okay. So let's treat this as a good news, bad news thing.
Let's do it. So things are good. One business is killing it, but we are carrying the cost. I don't want to lay off a bunch of my support staff. So I've got the support staff. Maybe I could walk you through the office if you want to see.
Sure. Let's get posted to YouTube too.
Yeah, cool. So I'll show you. We have the support staff. Before I take you out there, this sales floor probably only needs 3 or 4 support staff, but we have, 4 marketing, we have 2 technical, 3 operational, and then 2 customer service / client relations, because we have an Ontario business, right? But the Ontario business is shut down. So I have 1 sales business covering all of the costs of the support staff for 2 businesses. So it keeps margins super thin. It keeps tensions and I would say stress levels relatively high. But so this is my business. I started this from my condo. I don't know if we took you for a tour last time. This is the studio that we just built. This is my podcast studio, School of the 1%. And then I got all my 1%ers up there that I'm a huge fan of. So we can talk about them and why they're up there. And then the motto of this podcast, and we're actually going to be launching an online university of School of the 1%, is study the 1%, join the 1%. And I know that this is more of a listen to podcast, but I'll give you a visual real quick. So here's my sales floor. We got about 7 or 8 outbound guys right now. We have 3 ladies on the client relations and inbound side, plus my assistant. This is our marketing department and our videographer. There's my VP of marketing, also my brother. There's Kyle, my business partner. Yeah, that's Erwin. Yeah, this is a podcast. Yeah, and then we have a training space, and then our boardroom, and then visual studio, and that's Super Smart Asian Kevin. That's his nickname because he's Super Smart Asian Kevin. So he literally can solve any problem, and he loves that name. So don't worry if you're politically correct on this call. It's not offensive if the person likes the nickname. So that's our team, and that's our bumping business on a Thursday morning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to have you on, other than catch up, was understand where business has gone. Also, catch up on where your health has gone, because you've been on a crazy journey.
Yeah.
I don't start off with Grant Cardone Canada, because that's actually how we met with the whole one. Because we were put on the conference with Grant Cardone.
Yep.
And then we got connected because Grant Cardone has a established business here in Canada.
Correct.
And I'm a fan of the content he puts out. So hang on. Okay. So I'm gonna get some people getting mad at me because his social media content gets people angry. But okay, so I can appreciate that. It's polarizing. But if you actually go through like Cardone University, like his online educational program, it's quite good. Right?
Yeah, it's life-changing. I mean, I use that content to change the lives of a lot of people. Before I was a client, I was a customer. That's actually how I got to know Grant. I was a customer. I ran I actually built, with the vice president of Ledcor, and a friend of mine, now he's a friend, but a colleague, we built the most successful and prolific telecom sales business in Canada based on information assisted selling through honesty and transparency and confronting the customer's issues, which in telecom, everyone hates at least one telecom company. We transformed.
Everyone hates them all.
Yeah, we transformed the way that telecom was sold. We brought up the fine print, we brought up the introductory pricing, we brought up the poor customer service, and we brought up the bundles and packages that you didn't really want. And we confronted all of those issues with the client. And that's the only reasons you don't like a telecom company. It's one of those 4 reasons, right? Or contracts, customer service, introductory pricing instead of real pricing, the fine print, and then, all the bundles and packages of stuff you don't want or need that you get stuck with. Mm-hmm. So we used Grant Cardone University to grow that business. We brought Cardone on when we had about 80 reps, and then we grew the business to just under 200. And the Cardone University platform allowed us to stabilize our sales stats. Like, we now had standardized training before you got leads or before you got permission to go into a particular area and prospect for customers. You had to complete your Cardone training on customer service, training on how to handle customer complaints, objections, sales process, how to make a phone call without annoying a customer, how to follow up without being harassing. So we handled literally all the issues and the pitfalls of an average salesperson. And what it did is it increased our retention because the salespeople started making way more money. It decreased, customer fallout and customer complaints. And obviously it increased sales. So we made way more money as a company. We went from 8.9 million to 18.9 million in 1 year. Now, that was obviously not.
I see why you hate Grant too.
Yeah, right. So that wasn't because of Grant Cardone University. We obviously introduced a lot of new people. We introduced, we had a great vice president at the time. As much as him and I had our personal quarrels later, he knew what he was doing on bringing in the right team. But our core base of soldiers were now well-trained. They were stabilized. They were not distracted by social media. And I'm sure they still were, but a lot less, right? So if you're not training your people, someone is, period. The idea of not training your business staff, not training your realtors, not training and taking charge of the information that they're consuming on a regular basis is asinine. No military commander ever won a war without a mantra and without training. There was always training, there was always a mission, and they always occupied the minds of their soldiers. And business is not war, but it's similar, So I run my businesses now like sports teams. We occupy the individual's mind, we occupy their training and their focus, and they love us for it. It's like the kid comes in and they really want you to hold them accountable. They don't want to have beanbag chairs and safe places to cry and whatever else, modern woke mentality tries to preach. We care more about their success than we do about their feelings. And that means holding them accountable to educating themselves, practice and training at their job, and getting better at every single day. So that's how I met Grant. And I thought he was an asshole. Pardon my language. I thought he was.
You too.
I thought he was an asshole when I met him. I'm like, man, I was so much more into this fluffy self-help stuff and follow your passion and I still believe in following my passion. I mean, look at my office. I'm very much, I've got my cars on the wall. I got my motorcycles. I do believe in following your passion, but if you're a young person and you have no skills, following your passion is bad advice. And I can extend that further if you want to know why, but it's not good advice. First thing you need to do is skill up your character so that you can follow your passion. Mm-hmm. That's the focus. And that's really, I got a lot of that from Grant in his office. I was a 25-year-old making $250,000 a year. And then I met his salespeople and they put me to shame. I thought I was like the best. Yeah. And I met Grant's salespeople. I'm like, yo, these are major league players.
Yeah. Steve Spray, wow.
Yeah. Steve Spray, Dave Robarge, Jeremy Moorhead, Elliott, Jack Contraint, you name them. There's a list of them. They're just on another level.
Mhm.
So I bought the program for my company. We grew that company to 200 people. We did 100 million in total contract sales for TELUS that year, over 100 million. So we did 100,000 product sales for TELUS. Again, our commissions were about 19 million, 18.9. And then I bounced out of that business and I took Cardone University. I flew to Miami right before I left Ledcor. And I basically said, hey, Grant, this is before he was as big as he is now. He was in his little office. And I said, I've got a history of building successful sales businesses, and I screwed up. That was the funny part. I showed up early to my meeting with Jared, which is Grant's vice president. So I fly to Miami. It's my first vacation in 3 years. I haven't taken a vacation. So I'm going to turn this vacation into setting up the deal for the next 3 years. And I show up early for my meeting with Jared. And I walk into the office and they're having their daily sales meeting. So I walk in and they're all in a big circle. And I literally just open a door and I walk into Grant, Sherry, Jared sitting in the middle of the room with 50 people around the outside, camera, boom mic, the whole thing. And they're like, oh, it's Corrie from Canada. He's one of our clients. Corrie, come on in. And I walk into the middle. There's Grant Cardone, this guy I've idolized. I'm 26. I'm 26 at the time. I'm not in a good headspace because things have been very political at Ledcor. So I'm not at my sharpest. I've not been training on the program, not been reading. I've not been working out. I'm in a suppressed state, right? I'm in a slump. But I knew my time at Ledcor was coming to an end. And I'm like, all right, well, I need to go find the next opportunity because this opportunity is, I wasn't taking enough responsibility, but this opportunity was not conducive to my success. So I needed to leave. Well, they put the mic in front of me and they put the camera on me. And Jared asked me a question. He's like, oh, Corrie and I were having a conversation on the phone the other day. And he had some really good cognitions about the program, some really good wins that I'd love him to share. And I did not remember what he was talking about. So rather than just being honest and be like, hey man, refresh my memory, and that would have been totally fine. And then had a real conversation. I just tried shooting from the hip and I just choked up so hard and my face turned beet red. And then my buddy in the crowd, Jordan, was like, oh, Corey's choking up. And then the whole crowd started laughing and then they started clapping. But that was the first time I met Grant. And I've never had a bigger, more embarrassing moment in my life. My blood, literally, with these modern temperature checks, I would have failed one of those because I swear my blood temperature went up significantly. Yeah. But I didn't let that faze me. I'm pretty, I flattened most of my buttons on rejection at an early age. I started knocking doors when I was 11. So I talked to Jared. I'm like, man, let me talk to Grant. He's like, man, everyone wants to talk to Grant. I'm like, let me talk to Grant. He's like, all right. So Grant comes over, we sit down and we're in these little leather sofas in his lobby, in his little area at his front. And he's like, all right, man. So tell me what's up. And I immediately flunk the sales process. I don't ask him any questions. I don't put the buyer at ease. That's the basic sales process. Put the buyer at ease, alleviate their concerns, do a fact find, do an appraisal, see where they're at, how they've made decisions in the past, and then present whatever idea you have. Well, I just hopped right into presenting an idea that I had, which is what I've built, right? Which was not Grant Cardone Canada. It was my door-to-door operation. And Grant's like, oh man, he's like, nah, he's like, I don't want to do that, but nice meeting you, man. Thanks for coming in, and shakes my hand, walks away. After a minute of conversation. Now I've really failed. And whatever, Jared's like, oh, whatever, don't worry about it. He comes over and talks to me. And him and I go and have a meeting. But I couldn't leave it there. So I spent the next 5 days of my vacation getting a second meeting with Grant.
Okay,
so
hang
I
on.
texted Grant.
Are you vacationing by yourself? Are you with your partner?
With my fiance. So I come back to the condo. We rented a waterfront condo, Airbnb. She's like, so how did it go? And I'm miserable.
Great vacation.
And we're in Miami and I'm so it's an unshakable misery because you've created this future in your mind. But this is what happens with guys like me who for the longest time in their career, expect to show up and glow things right. By glow things, I mean just magnetize, like this obsession with this law of attraction shit, instead of building the skills, doing the preparation, doing the organizational work, doing the study. What was ethical about showing up to Miami unpracticed, without a script, without a business plan, without a basic approach? Do you know what I mean? Like, I did a lot of other things right. I had sent Grant some packages early. I got myself known. I'd started an email correspondence with him on a quarterly basis. So I had done things right, but I was in a slump. And when you're in a slump, your ethics are out. People don't want to accept this. They want to blame it on depression or a chemical imbalance, but the chemical imbalance comes after. And I know, because I suffered from cyclical depression for 4 years. When you're in a slump, your ethics are out, and ethics are your disciplines. They're the things that you do that make you feel better, right? Your gym, your reading, your goals, right? When you're in a slump, you're not doing those things. So I deserved what I got, and yeah, it wasn't a very fun vacation. I did my best to bring myself up tone. But 4 days later, I got a second meeting with him.
You asked for it? You pushed for it?
I just kept asking for it. Like I have the text screenshotted. And I said, man, I feel like Bud Fox trying to get a meeting with Gordon Gekko. And that was the comment that got him. And I'm like, because I just kept following him up. And then he's like, I'm like, man, I feel like Bud Fox, Wall Street, the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko's the big guy. And
Michael Douglas, right?
Michael Douglas. And then you got Charlie Sheen, who's like the guy who's trying to get there, and he won't stop leaving Gordon Gekko alone. And I texted Grant that, and he's like, all right, come in on Friday. And that's when, and I practiced all week though. I started studying the program. I listened to Cardone's book, Be Obsessed or Be Average. Like, here I am on this vacation, and I'm working out like a beast. I'm eating, like I'm on this vacation. I'm like, man, I need to pull myself out of this slump. I'm like, I'm not going to be a victim. Like, I need to get myself refocused. So I used the next 5 days, to
get it right.
Get myself right. Nice. Get myself right.
On vacation,
on vacation. And yeah. And by Friday I had, learned and got my swagger back, and it comes back quick, but like a lot of us forget our own accomplishments when we're in a slump. If people are listening right now and you're in a slump, just make a list of all your accomplishments, anything small or big. What are the things that you've achieved? You're still that guy. It becomes a little dormant when all you do is consume negative media, mainstream media, alternative media. It's all negative, whether you're an alternative guy and, you're talking about government tyranny, or you're a mainstream guy and you're afraid of the flu. It doesn't matter what side you're on, you're in the negative, right? And it's very easy to forget that you're a winner. So a few days of study, practice, exercise, eating clean, going outside, cutting out the negative influence, deleting social media, will bring the winner back in anyone. You can end a depression or a dip in a week. And that's what I did. And what's funny is the serendipity that aligned. I had Megan work on Elena, Grant's wife. So Elena,
sorry, you had your fiance work on Grant's wife?
Yeah, got her phone number, and then they started texting. Then they started working out together that week. So I'm going to use all my dynamics. I don't do this work-life separation thing. Like my woman is my queen. We're here to conquer an empire. She's my consort, right? That's a partner to a monarch, So she worked on Elena, and Megan's like, oh, well, we should go watch their podcast that they do together. So we went and watched the podcast on the Wednesday. So I messed up on the Monday. On the Wednesday, we went and watched their podcast live in the studio. I just kept it to myself, and Grant called on me once. He's like, Corey, where's that place in Canada? That's it though. I didn't try and get back into conversation with him, as I was still very much licking my wounds from my failure. And then by Friday, I showed up at I went to Starbucks first, and I got the coffee orders of every key executive in their place. I learned the coffee orders of every person there. And I found out Grant's coffee order. And I went to the Starbucks and I ordered 20 coffees. And it cost me like $100 and some odd, because 20 coffees times $5. And these were black coffees, right? And I'm there, and I have this on video. I have this on Snapchat reel that's all been saved. I walk out of the Starbucks and I'm carrying coffees to my rental car, 4 at a time, right? Got the trays, right? And I'm walking in my car and I hear, hey, and it's this guy driving by in Miami Beach, and it's fucking Grant. Pardon my language. You have to cut that out. It's Grant driving by the Starbucks, who spots me walking out of the Starbucks, and that's his Starbucks in Miami Beach. So he's driving by. He's like, hey, Corrie. And he's like, hold up. And he pulls over. This is Friday. This is a dream. Like, I've been picturing having like a normal conversation out of the office setting with him. He pulls over, gets out of the range, walks up to me. He's like, yo, what's going on? He's like, you want to get a coffee? I'm like, I already got you a coffee. He's like, what? I'm like, I already got you a coffee. He walks in. You couldn't have timed this any better. He walks into the coffee shop and they're like, oh, Mr. Cardone, because they obviously know him. They're like, you're quad Mr. Black. It was like a 4-shot Mr. Black. That's the coffee, right? I don't know.
Four espressos?
4 espresso Mr. Black.
Okay.
Right. And it's just come up right as he walks in. And he's like, what are you getting? I'm like, oh, I'm waiting. So he's like, all right, well, I'll wait with you. So him and I talk back and forth.
Yeah. I just want to stop you right there, Corey. That's what people don't get about Grant. Like, he's a gentleman.
Oh, he's. I mean, think about this annoying kid, and I'm 26, and yes, I'm a successful guy making money, but to a guy like Grant, who's, you're overly following them up, you're an annoying kid. Like, I have these kids in my life, these guys that want to, and they're not all annoying, but Corey, let me take you to lunch. Corey, it's like, I'll pay. And it's like, dude, I don't need you to buy me lunch, So for him to do that after I already screwed up, to like pull over, I'm sure he wanted a coffee anyway, and then be like, all right, I'll wait with you. Like, he could have just grabbed his coffee and said, hey, I'll meet you at the office. Like, I'm going to have a meeting with him in half an hour or 45 minutes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That was on my way to the office. But he's like, yeah, I'll wait with you. So we waited while they, brewed up Americanos and cappuccinos and whatever else was for, whatever girly stuff the rest of the office was drinking. And like, he started probing me. He's like, so why are you leaving Ledcor? He wants to see if I'm taking responsibility, and I knew that because I had been studying Be Obsessed or Be Average. And he says in the book, he's like, man, I ask people why they're leaving companies. And if they start criticizing that company, I know that they're the problem. Right. And I was part of the problem at Ledcor for sure. Like, there was a lot of ego between me and the vice president and some of the other executives.
All right. Oh, I just want to pause you right there because there's a real estate analogy. It's often the same thing when you ask a tenant why they're leaving. And if they're harping about the landlord, same thing.
The person that's the most critical is the most guilty. Period. That's human behavior. The person that's most critical is the most guilty. You rarely hear me speak slightingly of people. I don't speak badly about people. I always look at, what did I do? What could I have changed? No one wants to accept that. That's why when I look at the media and they're harping on somebody, the media is, you think these anchors are saints? We're finding out what these anchors do behind closed doors. The people who work in the media, it's so easy to point a finger and judge. And same thing for us as a populace. It's so easy for us to point a finger at our members of parliament and our politicians. How many of us have actually gotten in communication with our politicians? How many of us have actually done something for our community? That we blame the politicians. Oh, they're all puppets. Okay, well, have you even tried pulling the string? If you think they're a puppet, have you even tried pulling a string? Have you even tried going, if they are a puppet, have you even tried going in and having a conversation with them, trying to influence them? So it's so easy for people to be critical of another without looking in the mirror. And Grant was asking me those questions. Luckily, I had studied all week. So, and I knew, and I'm like, man, it kind of caused me to reflect because a byproduct of study is a realization of your own mistakes. That's always a byproduct of study. If you're studying material and it doesn't make you aware of the mistakes you made in the past and make you more responsible for what you've done previously, then you're not really studying. You're giving lip service to a book. So I realized, I'm very responsible for what happened at Ledcor. So I told him, I'm like, hey, I've outgrown the opportunity in one aspect. And the other aspect is, I want to be a part of what you're doing. I made it more about being a part of what he's doing and less about this lead core thing, you know? And him and I had a great conversation. And then he's like, all right, follow me to the office. And I have that on video. I have me like talking to myself on camera and on Snapchat while driving, of course. And then I flip the camera around and I'm literally tracking Grant's range and it says 10X on the back. And that was some law of attraction stuff. Like I'm not huge on law of attraction. I know that it works, but like it only works with action. But I mean, you couldn't have lined that sequence of events up better. So that's how I came to work with Grant.
The law of attraction worked because you were aligned. You weren't naturally aligned. It's not like you were born and like you were aligned. You had to study and train and practice.
Yeah.
To become aligned.
And I had to pull myself out of that slump to become aligned.
Yeah. Because Grant's all those things, like works hard, works out.
Yeah.
Like I saw him do like 16 strict pull-ups or some crap like that. Like,
yeah, I can't do that right now. I'm getting there though. I'm back to 10. I'm up to my morning weight's 162.5 and my evening weight's 165. I've been putting on about 2 pounds a week.
That's fantastic.
Pound and a half a week. So I'll go up to 180, 185. So, but my lowest, that was 110.
We'll get to there because I want to talk about your health journey because it's been a while.
Yeah.
Because I want to finish off like, so Grant Cardone Canada has done well even through all this craziness because, you know, recession, people don't spend, you know.
We out-earned 2020, out-earned 2019 by $10,000.
So you beat, okay.
10,000, that's nothing. That's like, just inched it out. Whereas pretty much year over year, we've grown anywhere from 40 to 60%. I mean, first year to second year, we grew 75%.
Right.
So, it's about doubling down, you know, I mean, even in the worst recession, you know, 33% of people don't have work in the depression. That means 66% of people have jobs. That means 66% of the marketplace is still functioning. So if I just increase my activity by 33% and smash on that 66%, I'm going to roll. I'm still going to succeed. Right. And the other aspect is when it's hard for me, it's hard for my competition. I don't need to outrun a grizzly bear. I just need to outrun my fat friend who can't run very fast. Like I just need to beat my competition. When it's really tough and it's pouring rain and it's cold and I'm a door-to-door guy. And I knew when it was cold and when it was raining and I'm doing door-to-door, I knew that my competition wanted to stay under the porch a little while longer. They wanted to drag out the conversation with Miss Jones a little longer so that they didn't have to go to the next house. And I was like, all right, well, if it's hard for me, it's harder for them. I'm going to double down. And that's how you win. You know, when things get tough in the marketplace, like other people contract. And I just, you know, and I was sick. I wasn't through my recovery in 2020. That was the thing. I was due for a second stem cell dose. I got COVID in January in England, and but I'm pumped.
The best luck, man.
I was pumped full of stem cells and vitamins, and there's already studies proving that stem cells are like one of the best ways to handle. You know, they're expensive, but one of the best ways to handle any kind of respiratory illness.
We'll get to this stuff. We'll get to this stuff. Yeah. Okay, so before we get to the health stuff, I don't even know what order we should go in, but I do want to hear about. Sorry,
we could finish on the Grant piece. You know,
yeah.
Grant Cardone. You know, I'll just let you know, like, yeah, he's an asshole sometimes, but like, if my personal trainer's an asshole, but he gets me in shape, I don't care. Like people think they have to like everybody. It's like, you know, like if I'm learning how to engineer a building and I'm learning from a great engineer, then I don't care about the personality of the engineer if he can teach me how to be a great engineer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I'm not here to, you know, make friends with the guy. I'm here to, and Grant's a social engineer. If you want to be a master social engineer and understand how to engineer social situations and how to really solve problems on a sales and marketing level, you buy Cardone University, period. It's the number one platform by a long shot. You know, if you just look at our numbers and our revenues, there's not even a competitor that comes within a fifth of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about whether or not you like him. Do you want to be more successful? That's all.
I'll just probably throw. I don't know.
I like him now, though. Don't get me wrong. He's a good dude. Like he called me a lot when I was sick. He's helped me out quite a bit.
Right.
I'm a friend.
Right. Right. I think it's not the best judge of character, but I've spoken to many people who work with them, like Steve Spray, for example,
Yeah.
and he's done wonders for his life.
Yeah.
So like the results, like doesn't matter what you feel about the person, but just look at the results.
Yeah, you
And
measure an individual based on the success of those around them as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of successful people that work at in Grant's businesses. And
There's probably 50 or more making over 250 grand a year.
And there's some that are like almost a mil.
I mean, Jared's way over $1 million. He's got to be.
Yeah, of course.
I know for a doubt, but without a doubt. But I know. I mean, Steve Spray talked about it. It's on my podcast. Last year, he made $746,000 US.
Yeah, US. Yeah, that's $1 million Canadian.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's 33, and he's a salesperson. He's not a manager. Salesperson. Amazing account executive. Salesperson.
And he used to sleep in furniture stores. Right.
We all have seen some kind of history like that. I used to sleep in a warehouse. So.
Okay, we gotta finish at least one of these stories before we get to another one.
That story's on my YouTube channel. You can just point people there.
No, we still need to cover it because again, when you last were on the show, I think we had like 6 listeners. Now we have like 16. Hopefully, we've grown a little bit. So at least 10 of them don't even know your story. So so actually let's start there then. Because you didn't come from privilege. You didn't come from, like, were you born at least middle class? Like what? Were you even born here?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto, but I grew up in Cambridge, Ontario, and manufacturing town. And my parents they're middle class, with some really good endowment of skill and talent, but definitely an emotional household, Europeans, right? And the devastating blow was my parents opened a restaurant and it flunked. And it flunked for a few reasons. My dad was ahead of his time. Like he built a restaurant in an industrial area that a few years later boomed with a residential area right next door. And, it was it had moments of mega success, but overall the restaurant business is a very challenging space to be in. And my dad refused to cut corners on quality. So everything was homemade. This is before the health food movement. So everything was homemade. Nothing was like conventional junk. Like everything was super clean food. And in Cambridge, your market was very much tailored to cheap. They went to 50s restaurant and got a $2.99 breakfast. And my dad's charging $4.75 for bacon and eggs, but they're pan fried eggs. It's not deep fried bacon. It's real whole grain toast. Like it was, in 2004, it was like a quality breakfast, homemade home fries, nothing greasy. And it wasn't the correct, I would say the failure was on the marketing and advertising side is he didn't really know his target audience for his product. And we didn't advertise correctly. The service was amazing. The product was amazing. Things spread through word of mouth very quickly, but that was only a lunch crowd. The dinner crowd we didn't build. We built the breakfast crowd, but and then there was also a lack of help. He didn't I can see now, like back then we could have made up a bunch of reasons as to why I didn't succeed, but I can see now as a businessman why I didn't succeed. There was also this motto that he had right in the menu. I picked up the menu. We have a bar, my parents' downstairs basement. I was in their bar not that long ago. My dad built this beautiful bar. It's very retro. It's like you're sitting in the 60s. It's so cool. And I opened this restaurant menu from the restaurant that they used to own. And it says right at the front, it's like, it's telling the story of how the restaurant came to be and how his dad owned 5 restaurants. And it said, "Son, if you build it, they will come. Or if you serve it, they will come." I'm like, "Oh, Dad, there's your reason for your failure right there." I'm like, "There's a piece of false data. If you serve it, they will come." I'm like, "That's bullshit." I'm like, "You need to advertise what you have. You need to advertise it. You need to market it. You need to get it out there." And he was like, he's looking at me. He's like, "Man, you're right." He's like, because they had this idea that if you just serve great food, things will magically happen. And I'm like, yeah, word of mouth helps. But like, if you serve great food and you advertise and you market, you're going to be successful. Right. So anyway, so yeah, that was middle class. And I think that venture cost my parents most of their life savings. So I watched, and I was 14 at the time. So, and I grew up a pretty cocky kid. I started knocking doors at 11. I bought my first mini bike when I was 11, rebuilt the motor with my dad. So I'm a huge car guy. I got cars and motorcycles all over my office. And so I learned how to rebuild motors at 12, like the confidence that gives you as a kid to understand how to replace a piston and rings and bore a cylinder when you're 12 years old, and I'm learning how to knock on doors and make money. I'm making, $500-600 a month, a lot of money when you're 13 years old, like cutting grass, shoveling, trimming, doing all that kinds of stuff. And no one my age was able to do that stuff. No one was making the kind of money I was making. But my parents were very middle class. And then at 14, 15, they opened a restaurant. I worked there. So I'm 14 and I started bussing and I started washing dishes. And then my dad opened on Saturdays. He's like, Corey, do you want to serve? So I was the server on Saturdays. So I'm 14 years old and I'm serving tables, taking the order, greeting them, seating it. My dad just walked me through it all. And I feel sorry for the customers. I don't want to be served by a 14-year-old pipsqueak boy who hasn't hit puberty yet. Like, that's really not ideal. Like, my dad probably wasn't, whatever, he served great food. But I got a lot of people skills. My parents had that restaurant for 3 years. I served almost every Saturday, and I made money. And then I became a line cook at 15, and then my dad would leave the restaurant in the afternoon so he could have a couple hours to himself, and he would leave me in charge. So I would, you got me and a server, and I'm running the cash and I'm running the kitchen. I'm 15. Now I've never told this story, by the way, ever. This is all blanked my mind. Probably pretty big contributor to advancing my age. Before we started the podcast, you're like, what's your calendar age? I'm like, probably 60.
No, you're you're based on your mileage.
Yeah, a lot of mileage.
Not your calendar.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how it started. And then when that
because restaurant businesses, think everyone understands how. First off, they don't do well. They often don't do well. Yeah. You're working in it.
Yeah.
Like, your dad had to leave you in charge to get any sort of free time.
Yeah. And then there's the marital quarrels that go along with all that too, right? And watching all that happen in your 15 and then watching them fall from grace. Like, your dad's your hero, your mom's your hero. My dad was more my hero. Like, I fucking, like, really, again, we'll have to cut the swearing. I loved my dad. Like, I friggin' admired the fact that he built this restaurant. He built it too. We built it, laid the tiles, did the drywall, like, built the place. My dad's a contractor too. So we built the place, as well as, we did all the painting, we picked all the decor. It's a really nice place. So I watched them do that, and then watching it flunk right at the same time that I'm coming into the age of drugs. Right. So the restaurant starts folding and I start getting into drugs, and as the restaurant's folding, we all kind of abandoned ship on my dad, which, if I look back, was probably not the nicest thing. Like, my mom kind of didn't want to work there anymore. Just, you got to understand the emotions, how high they were. I didn't really want to work there anymore. My brother didn't really want to work there anymore. And then my dad's stuck running this restaurant. It's like, man, like, I have so much respect for him. Like, the emotional, imagine that, right? Like, you built this restaurant. It's supposed to be the ticket out for your family, because throughout his history with my grandpa, they built restaurants and it made them hundreds of thousands of dollars in the 90s and the 80s. And that was back when money actually meant something. If your family made a couple $100,000, you were rich, in the 80s. So this is supposed to be the ticket out for your family. And now it's failing. And now, your family's receding and you're stuck with this operation. That's some crazy, crazy will and emotional endurance that my dad kept showing up until he sold the place, and I'm pretty sure they sold it for about a third of what they bought it for. So, like, or what they built it for, a third, after probably bleeding cash, and I watched all that happen. And then boom, a year in high school. And then, hey, want to smoke a joint? Hey, want to go get drunk? Hey, want to go take a bottle of vodka, pour it in a Gatorade bottle and take the Gatorade bottle to the park and, get drunk like all the smoke pit kids. That's what they were called. All the low income kids. That's what you would do. On a Friday night, you and your buddies would go and whoever brought the liquor, they sneak it out of their house in a Gatorade or a Powerade bottle or something like this. And you would be pounding whatever somebody brought, and getting drunk. And then I went down that whole path and things got really dark. Like I got into real drugs, like popping pills and powder. But yeah, that was kind of how, that you can kind of see how there was a really good foundation being built, but then I completely went off the rails, from 16 until 20. And then at 20, I quit everything cold turkey and took a door-to-door job and started all over again. And then
you went cold turkey because you were gonna die.
I quit cold turkey because my friend called me on a Wednesday night to snort some lines of MDMA and pop some pills. And I had this bell go off in my head. I'm like, it's Wednesday. Like I was already getting high Thursday night because you would pick up on Thursday night because I lived in Toronto at the time. So I'd pick up on Thursday in Toronto and bring everything home for everybody on Friday. Well, I would, of course, sample the goods on Thursday. So I was getting high on Thursday, not smoking weed, like popping MDMA, MDA, and cocaine, and Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. Sunday, you're smoking weed to get rid of the hangover. Tuesday night's cheap drink night. So 5 nights of the week, you're inebriated, and then, yeah, I just started watching, like a couple of our friends died. Like one of my buddies fell out of a canoe and drowned, like I love the guy, but like, come on, man. Like that's survival of the fittest right there. If you fall out of a canoe and drown because you're drunk, like that's self-inflicted, and another guy, they got in a serious car accident. We all knew they were high, but of course, you don't tell that to the parents or anything. Like, so I had one of my friends, I won't mention his name, but him and his buddies were driving up this country road, car careened off a huge, went over a big hill, was obviously going super fast, landed in a tree, and they were potheads. So of course they were stoned. So I started seeing all this stuff. And then I was growing drugs at the time too. And I found out that 2 of my friends had stolen all my drugs. And I'm like, hey, and then still like you're on drugs. So you're not making good decisions. Like people don't understand, like weed is a medicine. It is not like this whole recreational thing. It's like, it's a medicine. It's for sick people. Because when you smoke weed, you don't make ethical decisions. You eat shit you shouldn't eat. You're not going to organize and clean your house. Like, let's be honest, unless you fall into that one day where like, I'm going to clean everything, but you're going to be docile, subservient, lazy. So, you're seeing all these indicators. Your buddies are dying. People are getting in fights. Like I got in a lot of fights. I've broken this hand 3 times. You're seeing all these indicators. And when are you going to wake up? And I don't know what it was, but when my buddy called me, it was December 2nd or 3rd, beginning of December 2010. And I'm a bodybuilder. So everyone thinks I'm healthy, but little do they know I have a crazy drug habit. And my buddy calls me on a Wednesday night. And he's like, hey man, like I got some good stuff. And he's like completely stoned out of his mind. And I'm like, I just had this voice go off in my head. And it was like, ding, ding, ding. You're about to pop some pills. You're about to take ecstasy on a Wednesday. Don't you think this is a problem, Corey? Like that's literally the voice I heard in my head. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to pass. And I got off the phone and I remember exactly where I was. I was in the dining room of my parents' house and I walked into the kitchen and I'm like, I need to get out of here. And, that's it. She's like, I just made a decision. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I'm like, I don't need a 12-step program. I don't need any of that. I just need new friends. I need a new space and I need to be away from this influence. So, 2 weeks later, I called up this guy, I emailed this guy, who ran a door-to-door company I used to work for. And he was opening a location in Vancouver. And I'm like, I'll take it. And I hopped on an airplane, flew to Ottawa, 3 weeks later, just after Christmas. Went through his training camp and then flew from Ottawa to Vancouver. Didn't have a place to live. Ended up living in a warehouse for 8 months. Swear to God, it's on my YouTube channel. People can check it out. We went back and we revisited. You could even see where I used to sleep and I used to write on the wall.
Wait, did you work there or like
Yeah,
a
so
friend owned it?
the warehouse was it was half office, half warehouse. So it was a door-to-door operation. And half the office was like slide decking all your chairs, and you would bring in your 60 door-to-door people. And then the warehouse where all the bay doors is where you stored all the equipment, because we did door-to-door lawn maintenance. So you had all the trailers with all the lawn maintenance equipment, lawn care equipment that you would store in the warehouse every night. And then half of the office was where you would run the sales meetings. So you would run your sales meeting in the morning, then you and your sales team would go out and knock doors that day and do the work, right? So I used to sleep above the offices with five other guys. Sorry.
They were cute though, right?
Six other guys and one other woman. And we all shared one bathroom in a warehouse. And yeah, you can go, if you're having a hard time picturing this, just go to my YouTube channel, Corrie George, and check it out. It's very real. You know, it's not hyperbole. I lived there for 8 months, but it was my rehab, and I worked 7 days a week. You would wake up every morning, 6 a.m. You would get in your company van. You would shuttle your salespeople in because they were all students doing a door-to-door job. You would give a motivational speech. So you're 20 years old. You have 60 staff people who work for you. Like, I was pretending to be 30. My manager, my boss, CEO, he's like, Corey, just pretend you're 10 years older than you are. He's like, you have a gift. He always granted a lot of beingness. He always gave you the benefit of the doubt. He always made you feel bigger than you really were. But it pulled out of you greatness. And that's a really important trait of leadership, is like, you can speak greatness into your people. You know, they don't believe in themselves, but if you can communicate your belief in them, you can convince people to be great. If they have it, they'll tap into it, you know? So he convinced me that I was great, you know, and I had greatness in me. It had just been dormant and drugged for so long. And yeah, it was wild. I don't know if we want to go further with that story, but basically I used those 8 months and I quit cold turkey. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't pop any pills. I never popped another pill or took any substance or like any powder again after that moment. I quit hard drugs December 31st, 2010, and have never touched them since, ever. And I don't feel like, you know, I don't go to meetings or anything like that. It's just a decision, you know? And that's kind of what happened. So that's kind of how that happened. And then everyone else who knows me knows the story from 2020 to now to 2021, or sorry, 2010 to 2021. Like, everyone knows those 11 years, but very few people knew that 10 years beforehand, like what happened in my teen years. So that's a little bit about my story. If anyone's listening, they want to know. All I can say is, sometimes if you're having a hard time change your environment. You know, sometimes it's too hard to change the inside. You know, you always get all this self-help advice, like change your inner beliefs. Like, well, I'm sorry, but like, it's not the easiest thing to do. It's change your inner beliefs. So change your outer world, and then constantly work on changing your inner world, but do both, you know?
There's no one thing.
There's no one thing. Yeah, that's right. So that's how it started for me. And then from 2010 to 2021, I studied and I did sales. I studied business. I studied sales training. I studied motivational talks. I studied the law of attraction. I did everything from Reiki to Buddhist meditation. I did 11 days in the desert with Buddhists. I did 3 weeks on a Hare Krishna farm, a Hindu farm in Australia. I traveled. I did a ton of door-to-door sales. I did leadership. I did public speaking training. And I kind of built my own kind of university. I got mentored by authors. And within 4 years, I was in the top 1% of income earners in Canada. So,
hey, Corey, you may have taken more coaching and training than I think anyone I know personally.
Yeah, probably. Spent a lot of money on it too.
Yeah.
So not all of it was good though.
Well, you try everything. Not everything's going to work out.
Yeah. So
I just want people to know that, like, you didn't just walk into this. A lot
of, you know, and that's why School of the 1% is what it, you know, that's why I'm starting School of the 1% and YESA, which is Young Entrepreneurs Sales Academy, my company, is I took all the lessons that I learned from that decade stretch and basically built it into a curriculum. And I took all the false data, all the ideas of like, hey, you can meditate yourself to success. Like, hey, threw that out, and looked at what are the key things, the key realizations I had, the key cognitions I had, the key skills that I had to build. And I looked at the order. What's the appropriate order? And that's what we're working on right now. Like, we're actually developing a full curriculum, but I put my staff through that curriculum anyway. That's how I built, this business is about a $5 million company now, Grant Cardone Canada. And then my other business in Ontario pre-COVID was about $3.5–4 million. So, almost a $10 million organization we built based on this data. And I'm not super organized and not super business oriented from the typical sense of, operations and finances and things like this, but I understand people and I understand leadership and training very well in recruitment. So that's how we built our success, is our people are all heavily trained. And that helped when I got sick, because my people, we have such a hardcore training culture that I literally just got sick and fell off the map for 4 months and my business still continued to grow.
Yeah, you're nuts though. Because I remember, I forget, we were like mid conversation and you're in the middle of buying another business for a significant amount of money. Like, it was I think it was
hear the story with that real quick.
Yeah. Wasn't it like 7 figures?
Well, the business is a 7-figure business, but I bought, it ended up being a bit more of a hostile takeover, mainly because we were already doing all the work. The gentleman was a sinecure. You guys can look that word up. Always use your dictionary. Sinecure means someone who holds a position solely for financial benefit and doesn't contribute a lot of work. Okay. So we had this partner. Investor. Yeah, he was actually the owner of this company, and we got subcontracted. So all he ended up being is a key holder. Like, he had a contract with this big conglomerate, and he was supposed to be a sales contractor, meaning he does their sales on behalf of them. Then I came in and said, hey, I sold him a product. It didn't work in one of his offices. I'm like, well, let me run an office. Like, let me put my own leadership in. I'll subcontract me my own sales office, one city. And within a year, one of my cities was doing 90% of the sales, and all 3 of his locations were only doing 10%.
That's a nice upsell.
But I'm getting like this much of a revenue share. Like, I'm getting a fraction of the revenue share. So I just went to him and I said, hey, here's the thing. I can cut you out of this deal. To be real, I can cut you out of this deal. I can go directly to the conglomerate and say, and they know who I am, and they know my track record with Ledcor and with Grant Cardone. And I can just say, hey, this guy is not the guy. We don't want to work with him anymore. We're going to pull all of our people, and we're going to pull all of our training, and we're going to go find a new contract on our own. And the conglomerate will say, okay, we'll give the contract directly to you. And we told them, and we had these really tense, and I'm sick at this point. Like, I'm supposed to be on bed rest, and I'm supposed to be recovering, and I'm like in these crazy negotiations.
Yeah. You didn't look well. I remember those times.
I had a swollen face. I was I was still phasing off the steroids.
Yeah. You had trouble keeping food down.
Keep food in. I had a bleeding colon, so I was like bleeding internally. And I'm going through these intense meetings. And I didn't say I was the most ethical guy in all these meetings. I didn't have to be such a jerk about it. I can accept responsibility. But at the end of the day, this guy was sitting on a position solely for financial benefit, didn't care about the staff, didn't care about educating young people. It was just about money for him. And he wasn't doing the work. So an ethical decision has to be good for all parties. So I'm not going to continue to do work for this guy based on a contract that we did that's no longer ethical. Like, it doesn't help the people. He's bleeding cash and profits out of the organization that I could reinvest and grow the business with. So we went to him, we said, hey, we can either cut you out or we can buy you out. So, it's a $4 million business. It profits, about 125, 150K a month, pretty decent numbers. But we're like, listen, like, for all the work we're doing, we'll give you $500,000 in cash. We'll give you 250 now, and we'll give you 250 6 months from now, and we'll split the profits between now and then. We did that on a handshake. That's a stupid idea. I don't do shit on handshakes anymore. That's dumb. They're like, oh, we want to prove, that we're not assholes. We'll do it on a handshake. So I cut this guy a check, and that was most of my cash reserves at the time. Cut this guy a check for $250,000 cash. That basically emptied our bank account at the time. And we grew the business. I could share my screen with you. I'll show you. I can show you the graph. Actually, here I have it in the business plan here. I think I have an analysis of our past successes. I know it's not in here. We grew the business by 40%. So then by the time we're supposed to pay him the second installment and say, hey, you're out, he's like, well, that's not the deal anymore, because now the company's worth way more money. And I just pulled out my fangs, and I'm still and this is 2020. This is right before COVID hits. And I just said, hey man, like, no, we're not doing this. Like, I'll pull the plug, like we'll pull the plug. I ended up giving him an extra 50 grand. So it ended up costing us 550 grand plus, ended up giving him $1 million. We gave him half the profits for 6 months, right? And then we gave him 550,000 in cash. So it cost us just over $1 million. We took control of that company in March of 2020. It got shut down 3 weeks later. I'm all in on my cash reserves. I'm broke. 2020 hits. The COVID thing hits. No money. So it's 2020. We just went all in on this business, pushed out this partner, took control, and I'm still supposed to be recovering and healing. I'm in Ontario running this business that I just bought. So I met with my executives at Christmas. I said, Andrew, my guy, best friend at the time, you're going to run the Grant Cardone business. This is a 24-year-old kid. He's making $250,000. He's killing it. He calls me 3 days before the shutdown and quits. So he quits. My best friend, complete blow. And he apologized for it later. It was like an asshole move. Leaves me hanging. My business partners are in Florida doing a course, a workshop for a month. So they're not around. This whole business is now unsupervised. I'm in Ontario running this door-to-door thing that I just bought. Best friend quits, COVID hits, I'm broke. And 3 days later, my intestinal tract fills with ulcers because the stress, and I completely relapsed into illness. And I'm due for a stem cell dose in Panama, which I was supposed to get in March. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to bounce out of here. They say they're going to close the border. So I fly to Florida right away. I'm like, I'll get as close to Panama as possible. Get to Florida, they shut down Panama. So now I can't get stem cells. I'm bleeding internally, no money. My best friend quits, and I don't have someone running the Grant Cardone business. And this is my 2020. And then the Grant Cardone business goes from being $350,000 a month to $150,000 a month because $200,000 a month worth of clients stop paying their bill. That's my 2020, And long story short, it gets worse, but we can go into that. Either way, we made it through that. At one point, I was down $1 million for the year. Like lines of credit maxed, share all of our money gone, like everything gone. We even took that. It did an extra round of financing. Two really good guys, my buddy Forrest, I think he's here today. My buddy Chris, shout out to Chris. I think he's in South Africa right now. They cut us a check for $250,000, $125,000 each, to help with starting up that new door-to-door venture to fund the payroll of it. And like that. And right now where we're at, we paid off our line of credit within 2020. We rebuilt our revenues by December of 2020. We had a record month. We did 800,000 in revenue in December. And we've paid back Forrest almost in full. And we paid back all of our shareholders last year for all of their original shareholder loans. So we did it was crazy turnaround what we did. And I healed. I went to Colombia because it was opened, got a stem cell dose, did a bunch of spiritual work. We had another fun business in there. I got, 2020 was crazy. I ended up getting into the PPE business to sell PPE to veterinarians' offices, dentist office, and doctors' offices that couldn't get their hands on the stuff. But our supplier ended up scamming us. He told us that he had a bunch of inventory and everything, and he didn't. So we ended up losing about $100,000 on that deal. But by the end of the year, we had turned it all around. But then they shut down Ontario again at the end of December. And, we won't go into it, but all I can tell you is if someone just looks at the numbers of this thing, instead of the emotion of it, we could have a way better approach. We should be focused on supporting old people, 100%, but shutting down an entire nation. For every 1% unemployment climbs in North America, 40,000 people die. 40,000 people. For every 1% unemployment goes up. So it's not about profits and economics. It's about general health. Criminality goes up, domestic abuse goes up, overdose goes up. So they shut down Ontario again at the end of December and then reopened in March. And then March, boom, we're back again. And they shut down in April and we're still shut down now. So I have to crank this business twice as hard just to break even.
So Corrie,
that's my 2020. That's Corrie George 2020. People talked about a hard 2020. I was bleeding. I lost 60% of my blood in 2020. I lost 40 pounds again. I traveled 50,000 kilometers in 2020. I moved to Ontario and then drove back from Vancouver to, I drove from Florida to Ontario and then towed my Hellcat from Toronto to Vancouver in 2020 while recovering. Crazy stuff. And I went to Colombia and I went to England, like during 2020. So
hang on, going record. Let's not close the book on 2020 yet.
Okay.
So
I lost $1 million, lost my colon, basically, basically shedded a whole colon, traveled 50,000 K, lost my best friend. And then my door-to-door thing, when we laid off all 50 guys, and then we pulled all of them in to do the PPE sales, and then the PPE thing turned out to be a scam. Well, that was such a bad due diligence on my part that all my top guys quit, and they should have. They stopped. They're like, hey man, we're going to go in our own direction. So all my top executives quit in 2020. So my top executive, Puya, Max, Cena, all these guys that I loved, that I poured my heart and soul into training, they all went out in their own direction, and good for them. So I lost 5 key executives at the same time. So yeah, that was 2020. Yeah. If you want to ask anything else about it, but I haven't told that story either. Not on air.
Why are you holding back? You don't hold back usually.
It's unbelievable, really. It's incredible. It's not a credible story. Like if you told somebody that, if you told them that, it's not really credible. Like if you told them all these things, you bought this company, then it went under, then your best friend and your leader of this organization quit, then you lost 70% of your company revenue, then you had a life-threatening illness and almost died. Yeah. You lost 60% of your blood. Then, like the list goes on. Then you started a sales company that you got scammed and lost $100,000, and all your top employees quit in your second company. You just start lining all these things up. No one can believe it. Yeah. Right.
No, because you're wrong. Because you're wrong. Because I think your mileage is well over 80 years old.
Yeah.
It ain't 60. Yeah, you're right. Everyone should be surprised you're not dead.
What's funny is I got a stem cell dose in Colombia, and I came back, and then I drove from Florida to Ontario, and then Ontario to BC.
Wait, did you have to drive because you weren't stable enough to fly? Was it that?
No, I drove because during all of this, I shipped my cars. Because remember, I was moving from BC to Ontario to run this company that I just bought. So I bought this company. I'm like, this company is my bread maker. Like, I know how to run direct sales companies. Telecom sales is my thing. Mm-hmm. I'll just move there. Mm-hmm. I'll build it into a $7-8 million organization. I've already done it before. It's not like this new. Grant Cardone was new. That was hard. I didn't know what I was doing. Business to business, consulting, management training. I don't know any of that stuff. I had to learn all that. Yeah. So we grew that 0 to 2.6 million and then to 4 million in year 2. That's slow growth. I mean, it's fast, but slow. Like door to door, telecom, B2B telecom. I know that better than anybody. I know that better than I know myself. Like that's my thing. So I'm like, I'll move there. I'll double the revenues. I'll recruit like crazy. I'll train. It'll be an amazing operation. We'll grow the profits. Like that was my ticket to $1 million a year. That was literally more than $1 million a year. That would have paid me personally, and
you're 30 at the time, right?
And I'm 30.
You could have been making $1 million a year at 30 years old.
Yeah. I mean, 2020 didn't end up being a bad year for me financially. Actually, it's my best year ever. It was just
imagine it was a normal year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I needed to be my best year ever. I spent over $100,000 on my health. Money doesn't buy health. Says nobody. Says no one who knows what they're talking about. Your grocery bills, $6,000 a month because you have to buy certain foods, and you're dropping 25K on stem cell doses.
Yeah. It's not just money. You need to do it right. Like Jobs Steve Jobs had plenty of money to spend.
Money, knowledge, the right people. You got to work out your emotional issues, because you can fix the body, but if the spirit and the mind are sick, they'll kill the body. Like look at the story I just told you. Who created that whole storm? I did. I was coming out of an illness, right? That all was required. That was all the rewiring of my mind. So in the rewiring of my mind, the inner world, well, the outer world became this crazy hurricane, because that outer world was all these constructs based on the old me. So in order to heal, I started doing all this emotional work, all the spiritual retreats, all these alignment exercises, all this stuff, literally changing who I am. And my entire outer world is based on the inner world. It completely exploded and burned away. And then this new beautiful thing germinated. Like, not all change that appears to be bad is bad, provided you continue to move forward. So I rewired everything. You don't heal from a terminal or a life-threatening illness unless you completely change who you are. Period. There's scientific proof of this. People talk about science. And I saw a post of your time about science. Science can be bought and paid for, but most science is suppressed. Most science is not in the public domain. There's proof of people with multiple personality disorder. Let's say John and Alex. One moment my name's John. The next moment he's like, my name's Alex. John's a diabetic. Alex isn't. How do you explain that? There's documented proof of that. How do you explain that? The guy's personality completely shifts. He's firing a completely different set of synapses. His biochemistry, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, the dopamine, all that stuff completely shifts. The biochemistry of the body completely shifts. And the genetics of the body. See, I had to study all this stuff in order to get better. Mm-hmm. The genetics of the body are something called epigenetics. They're switches. They're not codes, not hard codes. Genetics can turn on and off. That's why someone can go through a whole life, be fine. They have an emotional incident, grief, a loss, a failure, and then they get sick and die. Right? So, I have to shift exactly who I am. I operated on cortisol and adrenaline most of my life. That killed me. That gave me the autoimmune disease. That gave me the ulcers. And I had to completely shift. I'm not on any meds right now. I had spicy chicken wings last night. Like, you ask someone who had severe Crohn's disease to the point of death if they can have spicy chicken wings. Ask them if they're on meds. Ask them if they had surgery. I've had no surgery. I'm not on any medication. I haven't been on medication for a year. Okay. I'm 165 pounds. I'm a friggin' rip show. I'm not brag. I'll fucking brag a little bit. Again, cut the F words. Like,
is it on your Instagram?
There's a story.
Flex pictures on your Instagram?
Yeah, want me to show you? I'll bring me my phone. Here, Noemi, can you bring me my company phone, please? I don't have Instagram on my personal phone because I was addicted to it. Yeah, successful businessman. I'm addicted to social media. So yeah, we'll show you the photos. I don't know if you'll beat me to it.
I'm on there now.
There it is. There's the photos.
Yeah, I remember that photo. No, I want a recent one. You jacked again, bro?
I should take off my shirt. You want me to get undressed?
You're in a 3-piece. So Corrie, you work with young people, you train young people. What Correct. Do you tell them? Because I'm sure a lot of them were, like I remember the young guy who came to my door, and I remember going through university and a lot of the stuff that is not conducive to becoming an entrepreneur that is everywhere when you're at university. So I'm sure you have these people with these, I must like you before I'll do business with you type person, or like you have to be likable to be like a mentor for me type stuff, right? Versus like, let's get down to some numbers at least. But anyways, so
I'm not likable all the time, that's for sure. A lot of people listening that don't like me at all.
But that's the other stupid part is like, we don't have to agree on everything,
That's
right?
right. You
Like
and I
you
don't
bring,
agree on everything, but I'm
no, we
totally always
don't.
down to shoot it with you. Like I'm,
Yeah.
like I like you. Like I don't care if we have differences of opinions. Like we
Yeah.
don't need to. Like that's why I have friends. Like
Yeah.
I want to enjoy each other. It's not about agreeing on every single subject, right?
And I respect the work that you do because your people are successful and they all
Yeah,
like you. So there's got to be something that's going right. Right? Yeah, you're not going
yeah.
to make everyone happy. Yes, not everyone will be able to work for in your companies. But sorry, what I was trying to get to was
What's my advice for people, young people?
anyone, because like you were saying, like it has to start in the mind almost first. You're going to have to make a decision. Some people have to make a decision at some point. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like when things started locking down, and I remember seeing posts on Facebook saying, "Hey, these times are tough. You don't have to pick up you don't have to learn a new skill. You don't have to, come out of the successful, take a year off type thing." Right. I don't think that's what I don't think that you were accepting something like that. I know myself, I wasn't going to accept that either. But there were people
I
that are
did it for
thinking
3
that.
weeks.
You did
I
for
did
three
it for
weeks.
3 weeks.
Oh, you're such a
I,
loser.
my health fell apart, right? So I went into the spiritual retreat. My body healed pretty instantaneously in April, and I was down in my church in Florida, and Grant was there with me. I actually ran into him there, and we were hanging out on a retreat. We're hanging out by the pool, and then I watched him do a talk on handling economic crisis, and he said, "Now's not the time to rest. It's not the time to rest." And I hated him for it. I'm like, I'm not going to, I actually left the live, and I ended up watching it later on Cardone University. He's like, you need to make a list of your assets and your liabilities. You need to make the hard decisions right now. You need to cut out the liabilities. If you're running a company, you need to cut some people who are liabilities. And you need to focus on all the people, put all your energy and time into the people who are assets, because if you don't have the hard conversations and remove the liabilities from your organization, you're not going to be able to keep any of them.
Right. Because it'll bring the whole company down.
It'll bring the whole company down. And he's like, you need to be gung-ho on opportunity right now.
Right.
And
if you don't let half the business go, you're going to lose the entire business.
That's correct. And he's like, and if you don't focus on opportunity right now, like there's so many people right now, I give this advice, like, what industry are you in? Are there people still making money in your industry? Yes. Okay, then great. Then you need to study them and tune out everything else. If the answer is no, you need to find a new industry. You're a chef, you work in hospitality, you work in travel. Okay, is there anyone making money in that space? If there is, find out what they're doing and mimic it if you want to stay in it. Otherwise, time to shift gears. And I didn't want to hear Grant say that. We had just lost a shit ton of money. But personally, I'm like, hey, well, there's not much I can do. I fell into that victim mode for a little bit. Like, I'm not going to get on here and tell you that I wasn't totally like, I was like this total stud through this whole thing. There was a lot of emotion.
You're dying.
4 weeks in, I got my health back. I'm like, okay, it's time to go. And it's funny, the thing that I jumped into, though, I didn't do my due diligence, and I got involved in something that ended up hurting me even more. Right. But that's not the point. That was my own stupidity. I'm 30 years old. I got a lot of things figured out. Still going to make some mistakes, though. There's a lot of things I don't have figured out. And when I fail at something, I fail hard. Let's look at my health. When I fail hard, and that's something I didn't want to hear Grant say. So for the people, you have to look, and I don't blame my guys in Ontario business. This business didn't quit. They're all still here. But my Ontario business, I don't blame these guys for leaving. Like they didn't have a choice, right? A lot of them got sucked into that socialism money, though. That CERB money messed people right up. Netflix addiction, TV addiction, social media addiction. They're depressed. You call them, they're messed up. They went from these killers to these softies. Socialism money does not work, period. Like it would work in a civilization where man was not so aberrated, meaning if people weren't so enslaved by their own mind and their own indulgences, socialism could work. If people were if the majority of the population was naturally inclined to work and contribute, socialism would work. But unfortunately, we have a bunch of idealists who think that if you give people a bunch of money, that they will still do the right thing. And unfortunately, the outside circumstances have to be motivating in order for people to overcome the restrictions of their own mind. So I'll give you an example. If I don't threaten certain people on my sales staff, not threaten like I'm going to kill you, but if there isn't some threat that they may lose their job or that they may, these types of people, because of that's the middle class and lower, what's going to happen is they've always been threat motivated. So that's ingrained in them. That's how the mind has been trained for so long. 98% of the population, 95% of the population is threat motivated. 5% of the population is inspiration activated. They take action out of inspiration, out of purpose, out of mission, out of principle, out of dream, out of magnetism. But 95% of the population is completely threat motivated. If there's no threat in the environment, the mind operates them. And that's why when things get really tough, all of a sudden cultures bloom, because the majority of the population says, oh my God, we got to band together. We got to fight. And that's why wars create strong men. And if you look at Stefan Arnio, he said, hard times create strong men, because the hard time becomes more of a threat than the guy's own, like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I don't feel like doing it. Right. So they push through the, I don't feel like doing it, because the threat is real. Well, we had a very
like
long,
going hungry.
we had a really long period of good times where people have become very indulgent. And now what's happening is they've created an environment of threat. And now the threat will then force the men and women, but mostly men, to wake up or get eaten up. And my advice to young people right now is this, is it's time to hustle. Like, you can find an industry that's thriving right now, whether you can do it in person or you have to do it over the phone. But like, now is not the time to give your responsibility away. Like, I don't know if people know, but Texas is open. Florida is open. There's 12 states right now, 12 states in America that are completely open. And by the way, they're not dropping like flies. They have their lowest ICU counts. Not to make this a political point. It's not a political point. It's a fact. There were 70,000 people at the Canelo fight, masks optional. Their case counts did not skyrocket. So it's time to stop listening to the news, which have their own motive. So all I can tell you is this: do not give your responsibility to the media. Do not trust the noise that's going on. Get hardcore focused on an industry and get to work, because your money is becoming worth less and less and less by the day. And it's time for you to start learning how to make more and more and more, period. Like, we have hard times coming. This ain't it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Not to freak people out. That's my advice, is like, don't buy into the facade. It's time to turn off the media and turn off the news and understand that there are vested interests and special interests behind all that information, and get focused on your own life. What can you do for your family? What can you do for your income? What can you do for your skills? And then once you have some money, what can you do for your immediate community? That would be my advice. And if you can move and you're sick of your country, then move. But, before you move though, like, how many of these people have written letters to their members of parliament if they don't like the way they're being managed or legislated? Very few. So my advice is always take action. Like, you have a voice, use it. I mean, that was a long, sorry, you didn't ask for all that, but that's my advice.
No, it's great, because take action, or at least make the decision not to do anything about it and focus your attention elsewhere, focus energy elsewhere. Because you can go run for prime minister if you really want to influence change, or you can just do something else that'd probably be a lot easier.
I'm going to run for governor.
A governor what?
For
Florida?
You mark my words. I'll be a state governor before I die.
That's cool. Yeah, you don't have to be born there, right? Because Arnold Schwarzenegger was a governor.
Correct. So I will move to the U.S. I'm in communication with my member of parliament, and I've watched them completely swing. Nellie Shin is my member of parliament, and she's been great. I've had probably 10 or 15 email correspondences with her, and probably 2 to 3 hours of phone calls. And they even brought up my questions and concerns on the House of Commons floors, and they let the House of Commons know that this Corrie guy from British Columbia was moving an entire branch of his business to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that sounded some alarms, and right now we have a letter going out to 375 members of government whether they're MLAs or MPs, letting them know. And it's a signed letter from over 200 business owners, where we basically included a fact sheet talking about the restrictions and the effects of those versus the actual COVID effects. And people don't really want to look at those numbers because they're kind of freaky, overdose deaths, the overdose increases have gone up 186% since COVID began. 186%. It's almost
surprising,
So it's pretty wild. 353,000 surgeries have been postponed, and not surgeries for like boob jobs,
like cancer,
like real surgeries, so there's a lot of data there, out of the 24,000 deaths, just under 2,400 of them in Canada have COVID as the only listed cause of death. All other 90% have 2 or more other listed comorbidities, meaning other causes of illness. We really look at it, the average age of death of COVID is over 80. So what we should be doing, and I'm not minimizing that, I'm a businessman. I'm like, hey, you know what we could do? P100 masks are the only ones that work. P means oil resistant and 100 means 100% filtration. Okay. We should be spending tons of money on P100. See, I was in the industry. I learned all about N95, KN95 on the white list, meaning EAU certified. I learned all about a 3-ply surgical mask and what it does and doesn't do. And it doesn't do anything other than make you feel better. Your nitrile gloves, your level 1, 2, and 3 gowns, all that stuff. There's so much money in it. But what masks work the best is a P100. It's an oil resistant mask, meaning you could take it off your face and put it back on your face. An N mask, the moment you touch it to your face and your oils have penetrated it, that mask is a single use. An N95, you see people with a really cool, like the real masks, right? By the way, if you have a beard, your mask does nothing. Nothing, zero. So if you're not shaving your face clean and putting the mask on and sealing it, it's doing nothing. But what we could do, imagine this, Erwin, imagine if we just took the $242 billion we spent last year on COVID measures, $242 billion. And we bought, we paid for health advisors, nurses, extra nurses. By the way, there's a bunch of nurses laid off right now. That's not a sign of a real pandemic, by the way. Most nurses would be working. We took all these extra healthcare workers. We put a bunch of money into putting people into supporting old folks' homes. By the way, 69% of all deaths happened in old folks' homes, 69%. We provided we put P100 available for all of them. We designed services to deliver all their groceries. And we built systems of sanitation for these long-term care facilities. And we offered services for anyone immune compromised. By the way, I'm immune compromised. I traveled 50,000 K last year. Okay. But we provided the availability for people to work from home who wanted to. We, provided services to old folks' homes, like in abundance. You know what $240 billion could buy? We did all of that. And I know hindsight is 2020. So anyone can look back on my mistakes and be like, Corrie, you should have done this, this, and this. I agree. Mm-hmm. But what are we doing moving forward? Still more of the same stuff.
Yeah, we haven't built the moat around the long-term care homes.
And that's my frustration. And, I try not to be political about it, but you see what I post on the internet. Often I don't necessarily do the best job of getting that point out. But I'll be real, like I'm feeling threatened by our government because it's looking more and more tyrannical. It's looking more and more ideological, and it's looking less and less sensible and rational. And it's looking to be governed by fear instead of logic. And I can't blame anybody for the decisions they made in 2020. 2020, you got this new novel virus. You don't know what the death rates are. You don't know what's going to happen. You make your decisions. It's so easy for us to point a finger at our politicians who are stressed and who have to make a decision quickly and blame them. But they made a decision. I can respect that. You make a decision, right or wrong. You made a decision. You acted on it. Respect. Everyone else can say what they want. They're not in a position of leadership. But a year later, when the data comes out, when the data on Sweden comes out, when the data on South Dakota comes out, when the data on Florida comes out, when the data on the core morbidity rates come out, on overdoses, on all this stuff, and we're still doing the same approach, it either says, A, there's either something afoot, like an ulterior motive, because I'm not naive. I know there are people with malicious intentions who look to benefit, or B, we have complete stupidity in the ranks of government. I think it's a mix of both. So I'm going to do my best to raise awareness about that. So we've started an awareness campaign here. I've sent letters to over 30 different police chiefs across Canada. And what we start to see is the police chiefs, and I'm not saying it was us, but we start to see, so the National Police Federation, the largest police union for the RCMP, said that they're not going to enforce interprovincial travel, and they're not going to or enforce restrictions on travel, and they're not going to enforce the restrictions that the BC government just laid out, which is awesome because there's a tyrannical, you can't stop me from traveling from city to city. That's my freedom and my right. It's a human right as per the UN, let alone a right under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And then the Peel Regional Police, Waterloo Regional Police, and other regional polices in Ontario said that they weren't going to be randomly stopping people and asking them what they were doing, because that's what you do in communism. You don't do that in a free country. So we're starting to see the police come to. Mm-hmm. But I can't.
So Corey, I know things aren't pretty here.
Not to get off subject, but that's what I'm doing before I leave. I'm not leaving completely and bouncing. I am planning on doing something,
Okay, so I wouldn't call it leaving.
Yeah.
Because it's just natural for an entrepreneur to look for opportunity.
Right? You know what? I appreciate that. That's a good point.
Is it not?
I'm feeling threatened. I'll be very real with you. We did 480 some odd thousand last month in revenue. My profit margins were less than 10%. And to be real, 10%, it could be a rounding error. If I have a spike in cost of goods sold, if I have a spike in any particular cost base, I go from being in the black to being in the red. Mm-hmm. And I have debts to pay. We have things that we're cleaning up from we've invested in stuff in Ontario, and now that's producing nothing. And now I need to basically look at, okay, I'm cranking on this business. We're killing it, but we're making no money. That's not a good sign. That means if I fall off and I fall out of this flow state and I fall out of this, this good momentum that I'm on, then I'm going to lose money. Usually when you're in a state, you're flowing. So I have to look at the well-being of my team. I can't even offer raises right now. I've got a wage freeze in my company. Yeah, I had a great year last year, but last year things opened. We're back to closed again. So I'm going to go to Florida, and we're going to, and I already applied for my E1 visa, and we're, tentatively approved. And I would invite anybody who does business already with the US, if you are looking to enter the US, you want to do it that way because it deals with the State Department and it doesn't deal with immigration. Immigration is an extension of Homeland Security, and they're very much a stop action organization. They're there to stop things. They're to prevent you. That's where you get the difficult bureaucracy. The State Department and the trade route of getting into the US, right? Your E1 visa, I think it's your E2 and E5, right? Those are your visas that are easier to get. And we've already applied for that. And because I already do business and commerce with the United States, it's very easy for us to get. So yeah, I'll be leaving.
Sorry, Corey. Is it easier because you already have track record, or because of a certain investment you have to make, or anything like that?
So an E1 visa means you already exchange internationally. You're an international company, and you do a certain percentage of your business with the US. So we have a couple $100,000 a year worth of clients out of America. So it's very easy for me to get an E1 visa, fly down to the United States, and be there on trade terms. While I'm there, I can expand my business footprint with US companies because they want trade between US and other countries. So while I'm there, I can expand my trade, which means I can set up an office, then I can hire employees, and they love that stuff. Like, I'm going to go to the US, I'm going to hire staff, I'm going to
create jobs.
I'm going to create jobs.
Yeah.
And I love the Canadian marketplace, by the way, for sales, because Canadians are easier. Americans are. It's a much softer socially. Socially, it's a lot softer of a population. So doing B2B sales, door-to-door sales is much easier in Canada.
Interesting.
So I'm going to have to level my game up when I go down there. for
I
sure.
thought just people were terrible that came to my door before before I had a YESA guy come to my door.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's right. You had a
Yeah,
YESA guy come to your door, and he was good, right?
he's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Like
I
he
appreciate
deserved to be making the money he was making.
that. Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna go down there, and I'm gonna focus on, and to be real, I'm socially liberal. So I know people have been listening. There's probably a lot of people who are. I am socially liberal. Like I voted liberal 2016. I was a pro Bernie in 16, but then 4 years, of seeing the results and not looking at the Twitter and not looking at the emotion, but just looking at the results. I have a lot of friends in the US. I have a lot of ex-liberal friends in the US, and things boomed. Like less fortunate people did well. Things increased. So I'm going to go down there and I'm going to target Republican areas because they respect freedoms. It's more business friendly, it's more tax friendly, but they respect freedoms. And for me and my family and my team, that's super important for us.
Right.
So
Well, for any entrepreneur, like so, there's no state tax, is it?
There's no state tax
Yeah.
in Florida or Texas. I think Arizona is very low. Nevada's low, but then you have to compete with Nevada's no state tax, but you have to compete with the big casinos.
Right.
So
Isn't it hot there?
your like very hot, but you have to just the competitive marketplace for the casinos and stuff. They are the ones that suck up all the talent, right? So I generally don't want to go there. I'll probably look at South Dakota. It's very north.
Oh, you're not. So you're not settled on Florida. You are.
No, I am. I'll live there. Headquarters, Florida.
Right.
I'll keep my house in Belcarra here. It's rented, but I'll pay for it and sublet it half the year. I'll keep my house in Belcarra. I'll keep this office, and I'll open a secondary office in Clearwater or Tampa, and then we'll start building from there. So we're gonna, my goal is to have 10 franchises done by the end of 2022.
And this is an extension of YESA, so this would be more of a door-to-door sales organization?
Yeah, so picture YESA like a sales opportunity, like a Subway. Like it's completely systemized, everything from recruitment to onboarding to training to the games that you play in the office to what to say to a customer, to how payroll is done. And what we do is YESA is a centralized hub for shared services. So YESA, the headquarters, provides recruitment services, provides legal services, provides financing and payroll services. And then the individual franchises like my Ontario business, and then the businesses I'm going to build in the US, those are the sales organization. But they don't take, so the leader, I find a leader, he operates it, he gets profit share, he's an owner. YESA owns the majority of the company, but he owns as well. But he doesn't have to worry about payroll. He doesn't have to worry about legal. He doesn't have to worry about recruitment or marketing. He runs his organization. He runs his sales team. He does the training. He does the day-to-day operations. And we then take all the stuff that would distract him from what he's good at out of that. And I already have my next 5 vice presidents and directors picked out. They're either with other businesses right now or they're waiting for me to pull the trigger. So we were ready to go, but Ontario shut down last month. So I'm ready. I'm literally set. The last things that I'm doing is just grabbing the contracts with the US clients. So I'm going to go to US companies in America and I'm grabbing contracts for us to sell on their behalf. And then we just pop these things up like McDonald's. Once I have 10, then I'm going to become a full-time, and I've replaced myself as a president of sales. I'm going to become a full-time franchise salesman. So I'm going to pull the Ray Kroc from founder, and I'm going to go across America, McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to sell franchises full-time, and my goal is to sell 150 of them.
So that's amazing. Amazing for the business and for yourself. Now I want to talk, because the reason why it took us a while to get to this point, because I mentioned this before we were recording. The reason I wanted to have you on is to talk, because I do have a fair number of young listeners. And
so I was looking at the stats. It said you guys are number 4 business podcast.
Among Canadian, something like that.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
good for you.
16 listeners got that done.
Is that hyperbole? Or are you're obviously kidding?
It might be 17. We might have grown 25%.
Okay.
But your franchises employ a lot of young people, and again, I've interacted with them. I actually signed a contract with one of them to purchase internet services. It was it was totally awesome.
Yes.
And this is what the franchises will do. You will employ mostly young people. It's not like you're going to turn away old people, but it's just generally you attract younger people.
That guy on my floor, he's like 40.
Yeah. So you don't say no to old people, but still,
No,
uh,
if they're young at heart, we're good to go, right? It's just generally speaking, my goal is to compete with the schools and not compete, dominate. I mean, you take a business graduate 4 years out of a business degree, and you take one of my guys who's been here 4 years, no competition. The guy who's been here 4 years makes $250,000 a year. He's valuable in the marketplace.
right.
The guy with the degree is starting at 45, 50,000, and
Not in this
what does
market.
he know? Yeah.
If they can get a job in this market.
Right. And it's a huge difference. So yeah, we go down there, and what I'm doing is I'm providing opportunity to the unemployable 18 to 30 without a specialized skill set, but have grit, persistence, motivation, some social acuity, and a willingness and a teachability to them. I mean, when our guys come in, they change how they dress. They change how their hair is cut. They change literally how they walk, how they stand, how they speak. Everything is up for reconstruction. And I don't care if people have an issue with that. It's a vain world. We're going to take advantage of it. Like people judge books by their cover. We're going to put on pretty covers. If you have an issue with that and you want to be unique and you want to look like crap and have green hair, don't work here. I don't care. There's plenty of other places you can go and work and make no money. My thing is, if you want to be unique, don't be broke, because 7% of the population is broke. So if you want to be unique, you want to be amongst 3%, don't be broke. Right. And I mean, we don't dress look at us. Like I get to communicate some personality with the way I dress. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I got tomatoes on my socks, so,
for the listener, like Corey's wearing a 3-piece suit and cufflinks, and
the inside
he's got
of
a pocket square.
The inside of my suit says "put in the work." Like you got the pocket square, you got the cufflinks that say 10X. Like I love how I dress. And we let these guys communicate their personality through their dress clothes. I teach them how to dress. We teach them about finish, fabric, or fit, how it fits, the fabric, the finish. Whether it's double-breasted, whether you have a surgeon cuff or you have a peak lapel, and, how you dress based on the occasion, what colors you pick based on what task you're there to do. Like if I'm doing a speaking gig, I'm wearing yellow, I'm wearing gold. If I'm here to fire somebody, I'm wearing red. If I'm wearing not pink and blue, red and blue, people, they're focused at work. If they see me wearing red and blue, they know something's up. If I'm in a business meeting and I'm selling something, I'm wearing pink. This is all scientifically proven. There's a reason why they paint, certain wards in the hospitals pink, so we teach these guys how to dress based on what they're doing. For every season, there is a, there is a particular look,
Are you saying there's a science to this?
There's 100% of science to it. Yeah.
So you're trying to put people in a position to win, right?
That's
trying
it.
to put everything in their favor.
Everything in their favor, and everything that doesn't require selling is the first thing you do. Like all the easy things. Are the guy's fingernails cut? Are the shoes shine? Does the suit fit? Does he have whiskers growing out of his cheeks, or is he clean shaven? Or she, how does she look? I'll be real, not politically correct. Do you have too much cleavage showing? That's not a good thing. Is your dress too short? Are you dressed too far in the other direction? Is your hair properly done? Is your makeup done correctly? And these are not things I give advice. We have a female director of recruitment. Half my staff, by the way, are women. Half. Sales staff, 70-30, but my total staff, half are female. And I didn't do that on purpose. I'm not, I did that. I hired the best person for the job. I don't hire based on any social justice perspective. None. I just hire, if you're the best person for the job, I don't care race, religion, credo, whatever it is. We don't pick on that. But to answer your question, go to the US. I find a leader who has sales experience. We put them through our online university. We put them through our in-person university, our leadership program, kind of like McDonald's U. when you buy a McDonald's franchise, you get a McDonald's university degree. Same thing here. Teach you how to public speak, teach you how we run our operations. You get all the manuals. We run you and drill you through it so you know it. Put you through some physical training too. Like I don't know if you've seen the videos from our boot camps, but they're pretty crazy.
Like, what do you mean? You do push-ups and stuff?
Oh, we do some exercises to simulate the physical aspects of business. So we have one that's called the climb out of the middle class, where there's something called the Coquitlam Crunch here, which is an average hill. Okay. It's a lot of stairs. It's 2.5 kilometers. It's a 600-meter elevation change. And they're like, okay, all I got to do is climb to the top. And I'm like, yeah, here's your instructions. And they get their instructions. And it's like, before you start, you and your group must complete 250 push-ups, 250 squats, and 100 meters of lunges. And they're like, well, as a group, well, there's 4 of us. Yeah, well, you guys have to figure out how to divvy up the 250 push-ups. So if one guy's more fit than the other and one guy can't complete, the other guy's got to make it up. And they have to do it all as a group. So
they all have to do 250, or they split the 250?
No, 250 as a group. So they have to do on average 75 or so, but it's timed. So they do, they do it, and then they have to go and do the squats as a group, and they can't leave until their whole group's done. And then they go and they do these lunges. And then after they did the lunges, well, and I have this all on video, what we did is we made them, they had to have a token. They had to get a token from us. And I want to pull out the killers in these people. Some of them are meek. Some of them have been introverted. So they had to run up to one of our course supervisors and say, they had to scream at the course supervisor at the top of their lungs, I am a champion. And if they didn't scream, I mean, like foam at the mouth, eyes popping out of your socket, scream, we didn't give them the token. So you help these people find their inner animal. And then after they did that, we had tricks for them. So I set up a couple of my other managers with hot chocolates. We did this in December in the rain at night. This is crazy. Okay. There's no bears in DC at night, by the way. People are like, well, what about the bears? Like, cause it was a hiking trail. There's no bears at night cause it was winter. They're all hibernating. So we had people from my team as managers with their car pulled up to one of the entrances to this path. It's a big clear hydro cut. So it's forest on both sides, but it's very clear and open. So we had a car pulled up and the hatch open with hot chocolates, and they were the friends of the middle class. And they were saying, oh, take it easy. Don't work so hard. Here, have a hot chocolate, take a break. You look tired. And some of them fell for it and added an extra minute or so to their total time, which hurt their whole team. Right. Because once you got past the team exercises, then it was individual, but your total time was tallied by your team. Then we had other people distracting them saying, don't run any further. There's bears. Don't run any further. Take it easy. This is dangerous. So what I did is I simulated my climb out of the middle class. People telling me to take it easy. People telling me to have a drink. People telling me to smoke a joint. We just simulated it with all these other things, and what I realized too is life beats you up early. So then your energy to climb the mountain is tired after. So they thought all they had to do was climb, but then we tired them out first. And we said, okay, now you have to climb. I beat everybody up the hill. And during my recovery, during everything we've been talking about, we ran this boot camp with 25 guys and 4 or 5 women on our sales organization. And I don't know how I did. I have no idea how I beat everybody. And some of them were like athletes. And I got up the hill in 18 minutes. And the second place person was 19 minutes. I have no idea. Like, I don't know what I harnessed, but I just knew I couldn't let anyone beat me. It might explain why my body took a long time to heal. I do crazy things like this. Right. So that's what we do in our culture. That's what we do in our culture is I want to simulate what these people really need to go through in order to get out of the middle class. Like, to climb into the 1%, you don't just have the marketplace working against you. A lot of your friends are working against you. They're giving you bad ideas. I'll finish with this a stupid friend is more dangerous than an intelligent enemy, because you trust the stupid friend. The intelligent enemy, you're like, you're an enemy. But when someone's your friend and they're giving you bad ideas about being successful in business, or they're giving you bad ideas about life, that's dangerous, because you tend to trust your friends and take their advice. And it doesn't matter if your mom puts poison in your coffee or your enemy puts poison in your coffee. Poison is poison, and bad ideas are poison. So, and that's what's going on planet Earth right now. The media is just poisoning everybody. Like, let's just have some sanity here. There's lots of illnesses out there. There's HIV, tuberculosis, there's chicken pox, there's a million different illnesses. There's regular, there's pneumonia.
We're not even allowed to golf here in Ontario.
Yeah, and
we're not allowed to play tennis. That's too dangerous, man.
Yeah, so it's, I would like to see some rationality come back to society, but then I realized that our schools have not taught rationality. We haven't taught common sense. Common sense is not common, right? So I can't complain about that unless I'm willing to do something about it. So by building these franchises now, and I was on my way, and I'm fully responsible. I should have been prepared for the COVID thing. Should have been prepared. I should have had a contingency plan. That's my fault. So I'm not where I want to be because of me, not because of something else. But I will say that we were on our way to being a 150 person business pre-COVID. And now I'm thinking, okay, if we can do 10 locations at 50 people each, we can have 500 students coming in and learning life skills, learning propaganda, like actually learning how propaganda works. So they're insulated from brainwash, learning sales, motivation, self-discipline, health, how to dress, how to present themselves. They're learning how to navigate this world. If I can do 500 a year, the ripple effects that those kids have in their own environment, the ripple effects that they have in their marketplace, I know I'm making a difference. But as soon as I get to 10, my next goal is, because it'll be systemized enough, now I'm going to 150. And 150 times 50, I think it's 700, what is that? I think it's 700,
yeah,
7,500. 150 times 50. Yeah, 7,500. That's what I thought. If I could do 7,500 students a year, 7,500 people who came to work, went through door-to-door training or business-to-business training, phone training, we talk to on average, probably 30 to 40 people a day. So think about how fast they're going to accelerate their development. If I can do 7,500 kids a year, I can change things. That's enough. But people are like, well, there's millions of people. Yeah, but you don't understand the ripple effects, because they inspire other people, right? They change, they grow, you release them. And our goal is to have them work for us for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And then we place them in other companies. Like they go through grade 1, door to door, grade 2, phone sales, grade 3, B2B. After they've done all 3 years, they go into the marketplace and they made money the whole time. It's our own university. And then they get inserted into other companies. That's what we're doing. And if I could do that, then I feel that I will be at least satisfied marginally with my impact, on this continent. And then, and I plan on doing that before I'm 35. Like I want to have 150 locations in the next 5 years.
That's pretty amazing, Corey.
That's YESA. Check me out.
And dude, that ain't a small change. So it actually makes you wonder, why do you bother fighting so much with our local governments versus just focus on that?
Because I agree with you, and I'm trying not to fight with them. I'll send you the letters I wrote them. They're very, very agreeable. They're not what you think. How I talked about, not judging people who are in positions of leadership for their mistakes. I don't have the letters here. 1 second. I'll read you one sentence of it. Now, Andy, can you get me 3 government letters, please? Or 1 for police and 1 for government. But I'm looking to implore these leaders to uphold their oath to protect the citizens from enemies. That's all I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have some impact. Like I'm an outstanding copywriter. I think if there's anything that I'm the best at, that I've never met anyone better, it's writing scripts. Even Grant, like I'm 99% certain I can out script Grant. If he sees this, he'll probably challenge me. I'm down.
You won't see this.
Yeah, he might. Him and I are talking more. So, all I'll say is that, I have this scripting ability. So it's like, I might as well use it, because I see a lot of people suffering. I see a lot of businesses suffering. I see a lot of people suffering right now. And they're not suffering because they're sick. They're suffering because they can't make money. They're not allowed to do what they need to do in order to earn a living.
Mm-hmm.
And I never
retreat. Being pushed. What I like about what you're trying to do is you're trying to give people training, but also really, really good training. And just remember, a lesson like we were taught pretty late in business school was it's incredibly important that we all get sales training. But what school teaches sales training?
They don't. I mean, there's sales programs, and I've been a judge on the panel at these schools where they have like a mock sales trial, and we bring in a bunch of industry experts, and we're the judges, and we watch what they do, and it's horrendous.
Yeah.
Like they're nowhere near. I mean, a 1-year graduate who works with me, a guy who works for me for 1 year, is way better than any of them.
Yeah. No, and based on what I've seen, the gentleman who came to my door, much, much better than almost anything I've ever seen. And he came to my door.
Yeah. And, I appreciate that. Yeah. And that's grade 1. That's grade 1.
And these guys if they do well, they all make 6 figures too, right?
A lot of them do. I mean, obviously a lot of them start, you start in the 40, 50 range, right, and you work your way up. But I mean, no one starts you anywhere. I had a guy, his name's Andreas. He's in Ontario. He made $21,000 his first month. He's 19. So it's not like you start somewhere and then we give you raises. It's performance, Athletes do really well with us. I just made an offer to the running back for the Calgary Stampeders. So I'm making offers. If you know any athletes, they always do well with us. They always make lots of money. The guy who made the 20 grand in his first month, he was a soccer player. He played in Spain. He also played for Canada. Like incredible talent. Because again, if you treat business like a sport, then it's so much more simple to manage. Because you're like, oh, like what drilling camp have I gone to? Who's my trainer? What moves am I practicing? Who are the winners? Like who are the champions? And when you're playing a sport, you don't get sports advice from people who suck at the sport, but we get life advice from people who suck at life. So when you look at life like a sport, you stop taking bad advice from non-athletes, right? I don't take advice from my friends, for example. That's not what I use friendship for. That messes with people. I gave a talk yesterday to a group, and I said, I'm like, I don't get advice from my friends. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Don't get advice from my friends. What are your friends for? Having a good time, sharing successes, having a laugh, having a beer, having a glass of wine, going for a motorcycle ride, like enjoying a hobby. That's what my friends are for. My friends are not here to be my advisors. Now I'm friends with my advisors, mentors and such, but my general friends are not here to give me business advice, relationship advice, health advice. And that's in the top 1%. That's how it works. Like in the top 1%, like, the guy who's the best athlete, he's not getting how to be the best soccer player from his mom. The guy who's the best businessman, his dad, unless his dad was, handed it to him, his dad's not on his board of directors. Right. So it's a very different way of living that I had to convert to, but it's very effective. And I have these letters for you. I'll show you, I'll give them to you off the call, but basically if you just look at how the call starts, it says, out of respect for the difficult position I'm sure you've been over the last 12 months, I have restrained myself from sending you this letter in the interest of not adding to your workload. That's how it starts. And I said, I want to make it known that I have a huge respect for any person who takes on the responsibilities of a leader and makes decisions in times of difficulty. That's how my letter starts. So I'm not here to argue with these politicians. I'm just here to implore them to look at the logic and the rationale in their decisions. So, yeah, man, I mean, hopefully I provide some value for people listening. I'll share the hell out of this podcast when it comes out. Are we live right now, or we are?
No, we're not live. We have to,
okay.
This gets produced.
Okay, cool. Yeah. You have to cut out all the F words. So hopefully I provided value. I talk a lot, but I had 2 years off of not doing a single podcast, a year and a half, so.
Thanks for coming on.
It was all bottled up. I've done a couple. I did like one before this, but there's a lot of lessons in the last year that I should probably get out, like I learned stuff just from the stuff that you're asking me, so I thank you for doing this with me, because it gives me insight to like wow, there's a lot of lessons that I kind of, just went through.
Just pushed through and didn't look back.
Yeah. Sometimes it's
forget
good
the
to
things you
look back.
overcame. And
Right.
and
It's
that
good to look
was
back on
largely what I wanted to have you on the show about, because almost always people ask, like, how do I get started? I don't make enough. And then their objection to how to get started is, I don't make enough money.
Yeah.
Here's an
Get a
option,
sales
folks.
job.
Here's
Like
an option,
the
folks.
fastest route, we'll finish here, fastest route to $1 million a year, active income. And if you're doing real estate, and like I'm putting money in away for real estate, like that is the ultimate end goal, right? Obviously got to delay it a little bit in the last little while. But if you wanted to know what I was going to do with all my money, pre this adjustment that's gone on, real estate, like I already have the cars, I already have the house, like it's real estate. That's it. That's the play. I'm not buying crypto. I might put a little in crypto for savings. I might buy a little bit of gold and silver as a hedge, but money is going into real estate, period. But the quickest way to get there is get yourself into a sales role. Find an industry, get yourself into a sales role, learn how to book appointments, learn how to prospect. From there, learn how to be a closer. From there, learn how to manage a team of prospectors and be the closer. So you don't do the prospecting anymore. You do the closing and you have a little team that you teach how to prospect. Think about the value you're providing. And then from management, become a director and then recruit people and, run a team of managers who have run a team of prospectors. You can do that staircase in 5 to 6 years, regardless. And what you do is you study 30 to 60 minutes every single day on sales while you're selling. So you come to work, you study 30 minutes in the morning, then you start your day and you drill and you practice. You do all your sales, end of the day, you review your study, you do another 30 minutes to an hour the next day. And it compounds. And over a couple of years, you're a beast. And I mean, your income as an SDR, meaning a cold caller, it doesn't mean cold calling like the way people think. It's like you're just outreaching new people, whether it's via email, DM, texting, LinkedIn, going in person, sending letters. But you're an outreacher. You can make 150 to 200 grand a year just doing outreach, not even closing the deals. Then when you become a guy who closes the deals, you can make $250,000 to 300, depending on the industry. Then when you're a guy who has a team of prospectors working for him, which I've been, the money's great. 300-400 grand, if as long as you're doing a good job. And then you become the director or the owner of such a company, $1 million a year. And $1 million a year is the new millionaire. That's the new millionaire. $1 million a year, million year. They shouldn't even say millionaire. It's just I want to be $1 million a year. $1 million a year is, that's where real freedom comes in. You make 100 grand a month, you pay, your marginal tax rate is 35% because you know what to do with your money so you don't get hammered. You're keeping 650,000, and out of 650,000, you're buying up real estate. You're investing in yourself. You're growing your brand. That's where real power. And anyone, and I mean anyone can get to that 300 or 400 grand a year mark within a 5 to 7 year period through study and application in sales. No questions asked. I've just seen it again and again and again. That's so awesome. Tell your followers that if you want to be an investor and you want money to play with in real estate, bite the bullet and do it that route, and you'll have lots of money for real estate.
That's pretty awesome.
And I'm hiring. So.
And you can maybe even move to Florida. I hear Florida's nice. Yeah. Pretty much almost all times of the year.
Visas for everyone. I'm giving out visas.
No, actually, no. Seriously, like, can folks? What are other opportunities in Ontario? I think some of my listeners are on Ontario.
Ontario is going to open
when it opens.
Open in the end of May. And yes, I have opportunities in Ontario. I have opportunities in BC. This business plan here, which is what I'm working on for the rest of the day. This is Kyle Zelazny, my business partner. This is friggin' guy puts together a 120-page business plan. We're going to break it up for the guy we're showing it to. Plus my slide deck is 70 slides. So we're about 200 slides for a business plan. Step one is we're going to grab a contract in the US, but we're going to call from Canada. So we're no longer going to be relying on the lockdowns, and we can work from here. So I am hiring 100%. Sales development, recruitment, sales management, sales directors. I'm definitely hiring. But I'll be real, the standards are high here. Like, if you're willing, this is a place to work. That's what I would say.
You want something that most people don't have, you're going to have to do something different.
Yeah. The marketplace is missing that too, right? The marketplace is missing people who are highly trained communicators, because there is no school program to become a highly trained communicator. Like, the communications programs are always so funny. I've never seen a drill in a communications program where they drill you on how to handle an objection, or how to handle a customer complaint, or how to diffuse aggression. Like, I studied communications. Oh, great. Tell me, how do I handle antagonism? I don't know. Well, didn't you study communications? Well, yeah. Well, that's like step one. So yeah, that's what's missing in the marketplace. And the skills that are missing are the skills that are highly valued.
Amazing. Corey, thanks for going like an hour over time.
All good, man. All good.
Yo, where do people find out information about this stuff? Where can they follow you? Where can they find out more information if they're interested in
Instagram, Corrie George. So Corrie, spelled like a girl, and then George. Facebook, Corrie George. YouTube, Corrie George. My LinkedIn, Corrie George Aliyev, my full name. And then YESA.ca is one of my companies. GrantCardone.ca is another one of my companies. And yeah, do your research on me, do your digging, find the negative stuff if you can. I don't think there is any, but do your due diligence and check us out, come for a tour. And anyone wants to come for an office tour, we're in Cedarbrooke in Port Moody. It's a really great community. We're on the 6th floor of the Bruce Street building. So 220 Bruce Street, come on up and check us out. Happy to have you and give you a tour and have you leave with one of our swag bags at all of our, we have people, we probably do 5 or 6 tours a week. So we have a package for you when you come in. Depending on how much I like you, I might give you a couple of hard-covered books. I might give you an offensive t-shirt. Really depends on who you are. So, come do a tour. And if you guys would like to get a hold of me, you can DM me on Instagram. My assistant gets all my DMs. I see all of my DMs once a week. I don't check DMs. She brings me my DMs and I review all the comms from Instagram, Facebook. So if you are messaging me on those, my assistant will bring them to me once a week and I see all of them. So if you want to tell me how much you love this, please do. If you want to tell me how much you hated it, please do. I'd rather the communication than no communication.
Yeah, people can hate you, but you can't really argue the results you get for people.
Yeah. And I would say, judge me on that, that would be the thing. Not the personality, not anything else. Judge me on how are the people around me doing,
Awesome. That's how I judge you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Other than the way you dress.
It helps you overlook some other things,
Corey, again, thanks so much for doing this. Have an awesome time. Good to see you're feeling much better.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you as always. And stay healthy, buddy. And keep 10Xing. And I look forward to connecting with you when I'm in Ontario.
Yeah. Let me know. Let me know when you're here.
Okay, man. Right. Cheers.
Peace.